Good morning, boys and girls. This week's grammar is dealing with adjectives, and it is something that we've talked about previously. We are going to discuss comparative and superlative adjectives today. So, what that means is that when we're talking about comparative adjectives, we are comparing two things. So, we're comparing one thing to one thing, or one group of things to one group of things. But in total, we're comparing two things. And a superlative adjective compares more than two things. So if I'm comparing myself to literally everyone else on the planet, I would use a superlative adjective. So look at how the words are written. Comparative. We are comparing two things. That's it. One thing to one thing. And superlative, it's like a super adjective. I am comparing one thing to many, many, many other things, or I'm comparing lots of things together. To form a comparative adjective, add er to a short adjective and use the word more before a long adjective. To form a superlative adjective, add est or use the word most. So let's look at it in practice. A comparative adjective. Jan is stronger than Mike. I'm comparing Jan to Mike. Therefore, I am using a comparative adjective ending in er. But Anna is the strongest of the three. That is a superlative adjective because I'm comparing Anna to Jan and Mike, and she's the strongest. Now let's look at it while using the words more and most. Troy was more worried than Chung. So I'm comparing Troy to Chung, and he was more worried, but Tanya was the most worried of all. This is a superlative phrase. So the first one is comparative. I'm comparing Troy to Chung. That's one person to one person. And the second one, I'm comparing Tanya to all three of these people. So three in total. So the most worried of all. So now let's look at 1 through 6 so I can do examples for you so you'll be able to work on this independently. Sometimes it was blank to go around a mountain then to hike over it. So I'm talking about the speed of going over a mountain versus hiking over it, or going around a mountain versus hiking over it. So that's one thing to one thing. That's comparative. So the answer here would be faster. Usually, when I'm using a comparative adjective, it ends in er or I use the word more in front of it. But because fast is a short adjective, we can just put an er at the end. Number 2, the blank child in the family usually had more responsibilities than the younger children. Now, we don't know for sure if this is one to one, but while we're reading it, it indicates to us that this child is the oldest in the family. So we would use a superlative adjective. OLDE. Sorry, guys, you know I'm terrible at this. T. So oldest. The oldest child in a family usually had more responsibilities than the younger children. So I'm comparing this one child to all the other children in the family. That's why I use superlative and it's oldest. And I'll do one more with you. At night, the wilderness was blank than the towns the people had left behind. I am comparing the wilderness to the towns. This is one thing to a group of something else. So it's still one to one, which is comparative. At night, the wilderness was darker than the towns the people had left behind. So it's important to make sure you understand how many things you are comparing in order to do this page successfully. If you have any questions, please ask myself, Mr. B, Miss Cook, or whoever else is in our Google Classroom. Thanks, guys.